Joining us next is none other than Karen Tay Koh, Mrs. Koh, Board of Director HSBC Singapore Limited, Banyan Tree, and the manager of Manulife US Reit. A great mother of 3 and a grandmother of 1. Hi Karen, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Evangeline.
Wonderful, lovely to have you in the studio with us.
Nice to be here.
And as you know, we are very excited to hear from you. How is it like being a mother of 3 and a grandmother of 1? So what advice would you give to all the working mummies out there, perhaps soon-to-be mummies or mummies who are at it already?
Well, Evangeline, I'd like to start with a quote, and it goes like this. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. And I would like to remind mothers that there are seasons in a woman's life. I think particularly for women, the biological seasons are very distinct. And as a woman, you need to understand what season you're in and be in the present and to live fully in that moment. I'd also like to, remind people that there are also seasons in a child's life. And this is the whole area of childhood development. Maria Montessori named sensitive periods of learning in a child's life. And as a mother of 3 and now a grandmother, that to me is just so beautiful. Right now, being the age that I am, perhaps I'm in the late summer and maybe entering the autumn and harvesting what I sowed when I was younger. And so for mothers, my message to them is to really sow into your child's life. And that means to give them time and to perhaps put aside the work, although that may be hard, because it is such a short amount of time before they grow up. And so those would be my messages.
Right. I'm really curious, how was it like, how would you describe your season when you were at the peak of your career and juggling to be a mom at the same time?
Well, I had career aspirations, which I achieved in my 40s. And it was always a constant juggle between work and being at home. But I had the luxury of stopping work for 8 years when my children came. And that's where I think I sowed into their lives with the time that I spent. And out of those 8 years, we were overseas for 5 years.
For 5 years.
I finished my graduate studies with 3 children and husband in tow. And so it was very difficult actually, because the balancing was difficult. It was tough, you know. But when I look back, it's just gone by in a flash, and now with the grandchild, it's like being able to relive again the infancy and childhood of my children. So it's really delightful, but being the age that I am, it's clear that you can't do some things now that you did back then. And nor can you do some things then that you know now. So it kind of pans out, and I'm very happy with where I am at the moment.
Very well said. And how do you stay organized throughout the day, back then or now, because you are playing multiple of roles, being a mom, being a grandma, and being actively in the society, being active in the society. So how do you juggle all this and stay organized?
So someone once said, your schedule never lies. So if you look at your schedule, you will see your priorities. So it's really not about time management. To me, it's about, first of all, understanding your priorities and constantly analyzing whether the way you spend your time reflects your priorities. So personally, I plan and schedule a lot. I'm quite obsessive about this. I make timetables for when the children were young, for the children, for the helper, for the husband.
For everyone, for everyone.
I still try.
Okay.
And so I plan, I plan, I'm a planner, I plan. And I look back and ask myself, how do I optimize, How do I shift a unit of time here? And will that improve my life? So I think you need to take time, especially, to take care of yourself. And that was something that I didn't do very well in the past.
Right.
And so now that I have a portfolio of roles, I find that that is foundational. I think self-care, self-knowledge, and I think self-mastery is something foundational, and so I deliberately spend time on that. Yeah, but it's a constant juggle.
Right. And that being said, do you believe in work-life balance?
You know, I once said to my HR head, if people want to work up to midnight, it's okay because they're happy. You know, that's their balance. So why should we stop them? So what I believe is that each person finds their balance, and that balance may shift from day to day or week to week. But you need to find that balance. And for me, it is important to be in balance. And that is, you know, an effort to be made to stay in balance. But first of all, to understand what balance means to you.
So what balance means to you?
I think, you know, it's a horoscope sign. I'm born in October, and that's Libra, which is the balance.
That explains a lot.
And so the balance is really in, you know, giving the time to myself as much as outside of myself. And I actually have a number. I have X hours a day, which is reserved for my sleep, for, you know, my nutrition, exercise, and then the rest for work or to give to other people. And I find that I kind of review that, and so time is a measure. But time is not linear. And sometimes when you're in the mood for something, you go for it. And so you have to allow yourself as well to, you know, to understand that time, 1 minute is not the same as the other. And to know what is now the time for, and to do that. And that's how I stay in balance.
Stay in that moment, as what you said earlier. And you know, you have come a long way being a mom and whatever you have achieved. So what motivates you up to date? What is your all-time motivation?
I guess for me, you know, my career was around what I couldn't get to do. I didn't get to study the subject I wanted.
And what was that?
Architecture.
Okay.
It was architecture. I ended up reading economics, and I didn't get the first job that I wanted, but it wasn't bad. You know, it worked out for me. And so in a way, not having a choice sort of defined my career path. And I always like to say, better lucky than smart, you know? And I was very lucky because doors opened. And so for me, it's okay not to have a plan in a way, although I'm a planner. I do plan my time, it sounds paradoxical, but it's okay not to know where you end up, because you can chart a direction, but you really can't guarantee the outcome, and you really can't control time. And so this is something where heaven sends to you, something you need in the perfect time, and you can't plan for it, or a door open when you need it. And so I guess that's how, you know, I've kind of lived my life, you know, really waiting on heaven in a way. Yeah.
That's why people say everything happens for a reason. And who has been your greatest influence in business, or perhaps taking on the mom role?
I would say without question my dad.
Your dad. Why is that?
Yeah. Because he gave us a very happy childhood. It was stable, it was very loving, and he's a very principled man. He's 89 this year, and you know, we learned about honesty. He always said honesty is the best policy. You know, that works all its way through business, about being trustworthy, and more important, about being kind and generous. And I saw how he was kind and generous. And so compassion, I think, is a very important quality which he demonstrated. And so those values are very important to me, and they see me through, you know, they've seen me through my life.
Right. And what is the biggest challenge you think you have overcome throughout these years?
I think the biggest challenge is to understand myself, and to understand the impulses that you might have, such as impulse shopping, which most women
I'm
won't
sure a lot of
understand.
ladies can relate to that.
And to try to control those impulses and to direct those impulses, and to, I think, take the risks I've taken some risks, and it felt at one point when I gave up my job, to early retirement from civil service, it felt like I had jumped off a cliff. And to be honest, I was very fortunate. It was actually a swimming pool, high board, and I feel like, I've sort of made it again to the side of the pool, and I'm up and I can breathe again. But I think taking risks, taking calculated risks, those were challenges that when they presented to me were, tough to make, but in hindsight, it served me well.
Lastly, what has motherhood taught you as a person?
I think I saw that in my mom, which was love, hard work, sacrifice, don't complain, and keep the family well looked after, work really hard. And so that's what motherhood was like in my home. And so that was the example she set. But I think for me, motherhood, when I had the children, I thought, one day they'll grow up and they'll be out of the house. So it was very naive. And what I've learned is motherhood's with you for life. You never stop being a mother. Motherhood is, to me, about unconditional love. And I think, being a mother is such an incredible experience that I would highly recommend it. But this is a personal choice, right? This is personal choice, because you can have many children and not be a natural mother, not to have your own child. But I think the qualities of mothering, which you might see in a man, nurturing, and loving and empathetic. So for me, it is not gender biased, because in the Bible is God the Father and God the Mother. They are characteristics of love. And so for me, motherhood is, in a way, it's a role, or it's a way to express that love.
Well, thank you, Karen, for sharing all the wise words and hearing your stories and what you believe in. I believe it serves a lot of purpose to all the mummies out there. And I hope you have enjoyed today's session. Thank you so much.